Okay, good evening everybody. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing good. Okay, for today, I am tasked to report all about special education. So, introduction of special education definition. So, how is special education? So, special education is the design and the delivery of teaching and learning strategies for individuals with disabilities or learning difficulties who may or may not be enrolled in regular class. So, special education is a learning strategies specially designed for students who have learning disabilities or learning difficulties. So, students who need special education may include students who have the following. First is the hearing impairment or are deaf, so bungol. Then students have vision impairment or are blind, so buta. Students with physical disabilities, so they are students nga dili kalakaw or naka-wheelchair or naay physical disabilities. The next is students with intellectual disabilities. So, mao ni siya mga students nga adunay something sa iyang pangisip. The next is students with learning difficulties. So, student ni siya nga gahi or bisag unsaon nimo og tudlo, gahi gid siya makakuha sa imong itludlo. The next is students with behavior disorder or emotional disturbance. So, mao ni mukalit lang. The next is students with speech or language difficulties. So, mao ni siya students or kids nga maglisod og storya or maglisod og express sa iyang gusto nga i-express. So, the next is rationality. So, there is no national data on how many students in a certain school like Papua New Guinea have special education needs. However, the figures from the most of other countries indicate that around 20% of the students require some special education during their school career. So, most of the students had only mild disabilities that require small amount of special assistance. So, with this, it is more likely more of the students with disabilities will enroll in regular classes in the future. So, what is special education? Special education is the design of teaching and learning strategies for individuals with disabilities or learning difficulties. So, special education is the techniques or the learning strategies addressed for the individual with disabilities. So, it also talks about the positive attitude of a teacher, where teacher with a positive attitude would be an effective teacher for the students with special needs. So, how does a teacher learn about special education? So, the teacher learn about special education through the module 1 and 2 of special education unit. So, this aims at preparing regular primary teachers to be effective special education teacher in the regular classes. So, the things that we are going to tackle further is the things that the teacher learn about special education. So, who is special education for? So, special education is for students with special education needs. So, this may be students who have generally difficulty with some parts of their learning at school or seems to have difficulty with all kinds of learning. So, this may be students with particular disability such as hearing impairment, a vision impairment, a speech impairment, a physical impairment, or an intellectual disability. So, these students may be with behavior disorder or emotional problems or a medical condition of a kind or another. So, next is special education terminology. So, people with disabilities therefore prepare such as a person with a disability, people with disabilities, the child with cerebral palsy. Shoni has a physical disability. Do you have a hearing impairment? So, with this, people with such disabilities do not wish to be known as for example, a Down syndrome person or a handicap. So they wish to be recognized as a valued members of the society. So we teachers or people as a member of the society must also respect them or treat them as a valued member of the society. So the World Health Organization determined the following definition, which have been generally accepted throughout the world. So first is the impairment. It is an abnormality in the way organs or system function. So example of this is a medical condition. It could be an eye disease or a heart problem. The next is the disability, the functional consequence of an impairment. So for example of this is an intellectual disability due to a brain impairment or a low vision or the deafness or a blindness. The next is the handicap, the social or environmental consequence of a disability. So example, a person with a wheelchair is not handicapped when paths and buildings and wheelchair are accessible. So there are terminologies or the use of language when talking about disability. So examples, avoid expressions such as the cerebral palsy, the deaf, spina bifida children's. Instead, use people with cerebral palsy, people who are deaf, children with spina bifida. So guys, people with disabilities also have the heart, so we must address them politely or correctly for them to feel also that they are part of the community or a valued part of the community. Let's go down to special education beliefs and attitude. So special education beliefs and attitude is about understanding the relationship between traditional and modern beliefs about why some individuals in our community have some forms of disability or learning difficulties, assess teachers in their work with students, parents, and their school communities. Now let's go down to beliefs. So beliefs is something that is accepted, considered to be true, or held as an opinion. So nga itong mga gipang tuhuan. So there are three main influences on community beliefs about disability. So first is the traditional beliefs. So disability has often been regarded as the consequence of a curse, spell, or other magic being used against the parents by other community members. So these beliefs is that the birth of a child with disability is the consequence of a particular action on the part of the parents. Then second is the Christian beliefs. So this has been regarded that every aspect of the Bible should be interpreted literally. So ang ilang beliefs is ang ilang basis is the Bible. So the next is the contemporary beliefs. So new findings from medical and social science research fields are rapidly replacing traditional views of causes and treatments of disability. So ang mga beliefs na bayluan sa pag-evolve sa panahon, sa pag-evolve sa mga medical research, ang beliefs is nga traditional, nagkahinay-hinay na siya og ka-replace sa bag-o nga mga findings. So now let's go down to attitudes. So attitude is a reflection of a person's fundamental beliefs. So to understand and appreciate a person's attitude, a teacher often needs to understand or identify the person's beliefs. So this means that the teacher should change her or his attitudes in order to bring out a successful model of an inclusive education for students with disabilities. So in attitudes, there are changing attitudes. So for teacher to fulfill the responsibility in making sure that the students with special educational needs receive a proper education, they often need to become involved in attitude change. So they need to change their own attitude. So changing attitude isn't always easy. So there are teachers that already changed their attitudes by simply demonstrating a new or a better practices. So with this, teacher must try a special education strategies to find out if a certain strategy really works. So attitude can be thought of having three components. So first is the perception. It is the way people see things or the information they have about something. So like for example, it is beliefs, facts, assumptions, interpretation, experiences, or understanding. Then next is the emotion. It is the way people feel about something. It is commitment, subjectivity, love, melancholy. The next is action. So the way that people act. So it is based on their perception or emotion. So it is the way people do based or according to their attitude. Now let's go down to the cycle of attitude change. So emotions, actions, perceptions. So emotions, some teachers feel uncomfortable working with students with disabilities, while some have very positive emotions. So some teachers and parents have very caring emotions but are overprotective and can actually limit the achievements and opportunities of students with special needs by not exposing them to hazards and risks of normal life. So actions is the most important component of attitude. So through action, perception is changed. So perception and emotions are going to trying out things that can be made as experiences or knowledge or an information that he or she, a student with disability, have. So now let's go down to the advocacy. So one of the most important changes occurring in the society and other schools is that the opening up of opportunities for children and adults with disabilities and other special needs. So people with disabilities had been cared, so we all know that they had been cared for and valued, but they have not been given access to the same opportunities as people without disabilities like us. Now let's go down to disabilities, types, causes, and prevention. So description. So what are types of disabilities are there? So there are 8 major areas of special need that teachers are likely to come across in Papua New Guinea and other schools. So first is the learning difficulties. Second is the intellectual disability. Then third is physical disability. Then fourth is hearing impairment. The next is speech impairment. Then vision impairment. Then behavioral and emotional disorders. So learning difficulties. So the students with special educational needs, the teacher are most likely to come across in their classes are students with learning difficulties. So these are students who do not necessarily have any disability but for some reason have difficulty with learning. So mao ni sila ang mga bata guys nga for some reasons bisag unsaon nimo og tudlo hinay gyud ang learning niyang pag-penetrate sa learning sa iyang utok. So students with learning difficulties are most likely to have difficulties in the following areas of school learning. So first is general difficulties. So difficulties in understanding ang following directions. So lisod mo follow directions. Difficulties remembering things, short-term and long-term memory problems. So humok makalimot, dugay makahinumdum, a short attention span and being easily distracted. So gamay og attention span, then dali ra ma-distract, being overactive or impulsive. So sobra ka langas. Difficulties organizing work and time. Difficulties getting started. So maglisod og organize sa iyang trabaho, then maglisod sad siya og unsaon pagsugod. So lack of confidence, reluctant to attempt difficult or new tasks. So, mauwaw, walay confidence. Difficulties with tasks that requires rapid responses. So, maglisod siya og cope up sa usa ka trabaho nga kinahanglan og paspas nga response. Then, lack of effective learning strategies. So, kuwang siya og mga strategies kung unsaon pag-cope up sa usa ka learning. So next is difficulties in reading. So difficulties in reading are sometimes called dyslexia, which is in Latin word meaning can't read. So particular areas of needs are likely to be so difficulties in remembering sight words and patterns. So maglisod siya hinumdum sa mga keywords. Difficulties identifying the separate sound in spoken words. So maglisod siya og differentiate sa sound sa usa ka spoken word into another. Then difficulties blending sounds, so maglisod siya blend sa sound. Confuses similar letters and words, so like for example B and D, then man and name. The next is difficulties in decoding words, so working out how written words and sound and what they might mean. The next is difficulties in mathematics. If mathematics is the only area of difficulty, this area of difficulty is sometimes called dyscalculia, meaning can't do maths. So students with mathematics difficulties often have difficulty with counting and sorting groups of objects to math numbers. So maglisod og count og pag-sort sa mga numbers. Then difficulty in remembering numbers, facts, so maglisod siya og hinumdum sa addition, subtraction, time of tables, addition facts. The next is difficulties with arithmetic operations. So samot maglisod siya og unsaon pag-arithmetic patterns or unsaon ang arithmetic operations, what are the formulas, and so on. Next is difficulties in writing. So many children have difficulty forming letters. So maglisod og unsaon pagporma sa letter ug suwat. Holding a pencil correctly. So maglisod og unsaon paggunit sa lapis nga correct. Tracing shapes with fingers. So maglisod og pag-trace sa shapes. Then recognizing shapes. Copying from blackboard, drawing, and so on. So maglisod siya og draw, maglisod siya og copy from blackboard to his notebook or paper. Let's go down to consequences and related difficulties. So students with learning difficulties sometimes have other difficulties that may be related to their learning difficulties. So some of the frequently occurring difficulties are the low confidence and self-esteem. So students with learning difficulties often have a little confidence, may have a very poor opinion of themselves and their abilities. So, ang low confidence and self-esteem from the word itself, so ang students ani kay magiiwawan kaayo, walay confidence, ni walay self-esteem sa pag-think og opinion or the ability for themselves to share opinions. The next is the poor social relationship. So students with learning difficulties can be socially isolated and can be difficulty making friends. So for social relationship, maglisod ang bata ani kung na siya difficulty disabilities sa pagpangita or pag-make friends or makakita og amiga kay kasagaran sa ato ani sugsugon. The next is the clumsiness, lack of coordinations. So some students with learning difficulties are also fairly coordinated, have difficulties with sports, games, and other physical activities. So in this part, clumsy siya, then kuwang siya og coordination. The next is the four expressive skills, problems with memory and problems with learning, and more substyle skills of language can often cause students with learning difficulties to be poor communicators. So students have poor communicators. So siya ra dili siya kamao mo sangpit og laing students maglisod. So now let's go down to causes of learning difficulties. So first, quality and type of instruction given. So with this, ang gihatag nga instruction or a learning instruction nga gihatag sa teacher sa usa ka students with learning disability, then second is the teacher's expectation. So sometimes kung you as a teacher, kung taas kag expectation niya kasagaran nimong estudyante is with learning disabilities, makahatag na siya og difficulty sa estudyante. The next is the relevance of schoolwork to the students. So ang importansya sa mga schoolwork nga gihatag sa teacher to the students. The next is the classroom environment. So kung ang classroom environment or the classroom itself dili conducive para sa iyang needs. The next is manner in which the teacher treats the students. So here students must be enthusiastic, then puno sa pagdayig kay kabaw ka ang students with disabilities lisod na sila i-approach. The next is ways in which students is treated by others. So giunsa ang students pag-treat sa iyang classmates or sa iyang laing kauban nga students with disabilities. The next is the appropriateness of the curriculum. So here dapat kung unsay kailangan sa usa ka estudyante nga with disabilities maunta ang mahatag sa iya. So one of the major known causes of severe learning difficulties is a phenomenon known as failure cycle. So if a student experiences difficulty or failure early in their school life, they can lose confidence, avoid difficult learning tasks, avoid practicing their skills, avoid school altogether in some cases, and so accumulate a whole lot more reasons to struggle at school. So the following diagram uses literacy to demonstrate this phenomenon. So a failure cycle: I don't like reading, I won't do any reading, I won't practice my reading, my teacher reprimands me because I can't read, I don't like my teacher so I won't ask for help, I won't tell my parents because they will be upset with me, then I will never learn to read, I'm a hopeless person. So grabe no, from one small mistake to turn para mahimong worse ang mindset sa usa ka students. Down to teaching strategies. So major consideration for teaching students with learning difficulties are: first, use direct explicit teaching to teach reading, writing, spelling, and mathematics. So you need to use explicit teaching with the explicit teaching materials. The next is build up the confidence of students by starting only with easy tasks that they can already do or move ahead gradually, introducing harder materials very carefully. So with this, you are going to start with the easy tasks to your students, pahantod sa lisod hantod sa pinaka lisod. The next is monitor students' work regularly and carefully so that you know when students are experiencing difficulties and you can respond quickly. So kinahanglan i-monitor nimo ang students nimo carefully and regularly. The next is teach skills in practical, meaningful ways and use concrete materials frequently. So you need to use concrete materials for you to have a meaningful teaching. The next is give plenty of attention to phonics and decoding strategies in reading, as well as plenty of attention to phonemics awareness skills. So disregard with games involving swapping beginning sounds, ending sounds, and middle sounds in work, clapping out of the numbers of sounds and syllables in words. So next is provide plenty practice and revision of skills and knowledge. So you need to do some modules for you to have for your students to have a revision. So kinahanglan balik-balikon, mag-provide ka sa ila og materials. The next is use peer tutors and parents helpers to provide extra instruction and practices. So not only teachers ang kinahanglan nga motabang para ma-educate or matabangan ang disabilities sa usa ka students, but as well as parent and other people nga pwede makatudlo sa ila. Now let's go down to intellectual disability. So intellectual disability is a substantial limitation in cognitive functioning. So thinking skills. So when we say intellectual disability, usually have limited communication skills, limited self-care, for social skills, and very limited in academic skills. So there are causes of intellectual disability. So intellectual disability is the result of damage to the brain. So there are some known causes. So first is the genetic conditions, abnormalities in genes inherited from parents, error when genes are combined of damage to genes during or before pregnancy. So example of this is radiation or exposing on radiation. So then Down syndrome and the Fragile X syndrome. Ano yung mga examples niya. The next is the problem during pregnancy. So poisoning of the unborn baby from alcohol or other drugs, malnutrition, illness of the mother. So here ang example ani is HIV. So nagka-problema ang mama, nagka-HIV, nagka-venereal disease or rubella or toxoplasmosis or cytomegalovirus. The next is problems at birth. So prematurity, low birth weight, injury at birth due to complications. So ang mother ani so bali ang baby ani pag anak sa mother ko naa na siya complications. Or the next is problem after birth. So disease such as whooping cough, chickenpox, measles, meningitis, malaria, encephalitis, so head injuries, then oxygen deprivation from near drowning, so poisoning, ingestion of pollutants, and malnutrition or high fever. Now let's go down to prevention. So preventions are the preventive measures that parents and others can take to reduce the risk of intellectual disability, include before birth, so avoid alcohol, smoking, and other drugs. So wala pa ka manganak, kinahanglan dili ka magsigig inom, di ka mag-smoke, dili ka magpatakaw, take og tambal. The next, avoid HIV and other sexuality transmitted disease. So HIV dili pwede ang transmitted diseases. So next is have a good diet and a healthy lifestyle. So you as a mother nga nagbuntis ka, kinahanglan na kay good diet o healthy lifestyle. The next, obtain plenty of rest and avoid strain and overwork. So you need to rest. The next is seek medical assistance for any illness or infection. So kung nakay pamation, kinahanglan magpa-check up gyud. So things after birth, eliminate child abuse or neglect. So imong ilikhay mong anak sa any child abuse. The next is avoid accidents and injury. Ampingan ang bata to avoid injuries. The next is obtain proper immunization against diseases. So dapat magpa-immunize ka available sa ating mga barangays or mga private hospitals. The next is avoid malaria. So kini avoid jud, i-avoid imong anak nga magkasakit og malaria. The next is ensure that the child has a healthy diet and a healthy active lifestyle. So tagaan mo siya vitamins, pakanon og mga healthy nga mga foods. The next is avoid dirty or polluted water. Ayaw pa na og polluted nga water or hugaw nga tubig. The next is prevent infections by only using clean food and have good hygiene practices. So good hygiene practices especially nowadays. The next is teaching strategies. So the most important thing for teachers to understand about students with mild or moderate intellectual disability is they will have a serious learning difficulties and will not be able to access the whole school curriculum. So teachers need to discuss to the students' need with the student's parent and work out some educational priorities for the students. So the students learning at the school will be limited. So the teacher must make sure that the educational objectives set the students for the students are important and achievable and useful. The next is partial participation. So here, not only teachers will do his tasks on addressing or helping the students with disabilities, but also the mother and other people nga pwede makatudlo sa iyaha. The next is functional curriculum. So because students with intellectual disability learn very slowly, functional skills are usually basic communication skills. So self-care skills, personal safety, money management, survival reading skills, social skills, and practitioner skills for making a living. So teachers should use real and practitioner materials for teaching functional skills, and if possible, ensure that the students practices their skills in real context. So ang teachers maghimo og mga real nga materials for teaching functional skills. The next is make learning fun. So students with intellectual disabilities have much right to be at school as any other child. So to teach the students well, teacher have to treat them with dignity and respect and make learning fun. So kaya mga students with students with disabilities have a small span of attention. So kinahanglan sila og i-approach, kinahanglan sila og hinay-hinay nga dalon. So kinahanglan while you are discussing, kinahanglan nga ang imong pag-discuss is ang imong pag-deliver sa imuhang discussion is kinahanglan nga aligre kay mubo ra siya og attention span. The next is the task analysis, to breaking simple tasks into smaller tasks. So if a simple task bugat pagyapon so sa kay estudyante nga na ay disabilities, kinahanglan nimo siya i-break down until nga ang usa ka task mahimo na siyang sayon sa students nga naay disability. The next is the peer tutoring. So in a busy and a crowded classroom, ang teacher dili na gyud siya kahatag og full nga attention sa usa ka students nga naay disability. So with this, teacher should always use other students and parents and any other helpers to help with students with disability. So ang teacher kinahanglan musik og help sa laing tao like her mother or iyang parents or other people like brothers and sisters nga pwede nga makatabang niya ma-address ang iyahang needs. Okay, let's go down to physical disability. So some place limitation on a person's ability to move about or to use their limbs and hands. So physical disability is the most obvious disability kay makita ra nato kung unsay disability niya through our own eyes. So disability due to injury or other trauma. So accidents, natural disaster, abuse, or neglect can cause children to have amputated limbs, impaired limbs, or spinal column, or any other physical impairment. So kani nga disability guys is caused by a natural disaster. So is caused by an injury or burns or any other natural disaster nga maka-cause sa usa ka tawo nga mahimong disabled. This is the cerebral palsy. So cerebral palsy is a form of brain damage that can cause a range of different physical disabilities and sometimes intellectual disability. So cerebral palsy is a result from the pregnant mother having an infection like rubella, diabetes, or any other problems at birth. So in cerebral palsy, there are three major types. So first is the spasticity. So, very stiff muscle or high muscle tension. So, some parts of the body are rigid. So, movement can be so awkward. The next is the atiatosis, uncontrolled muscle movement. So, the parts of the body move uncomfortably and inconsistently. The next is the ataxia, poor balance and unusual clumsiness. So, the child with ataxia may have difficulty walking and may be teased by other children. So, the next is the poliomyelitis. So, poliomyelitis or the polio is a common disease in many developing countries. So, the disease is mild in most cases, which can cause permanent and severe paralysis of body part, usually the legs or the feet. So, polio can also be fatal in breathing if breathing or swallowing is affected. Next is the epilepsy. So epileptic seizures are caused by brain damage or an abnormal brain condition. So high fever, dehydration, poisoning, and meningitis can cause epilepsy. The next is the spina bifida. So spina bifida is a medical condition that develops in some children before birth. So when the vertebrae of the spine do not properly enclose the spinal cord, a soft and protected area can be left and the spinal cord can be bulged through the skin. So the bags of nerves looks like a dark bag and can leak fluid from the brain and spinal cord. So I have here an illustration of a kid having a spina bifida. So, birth conditions. So, there are 3 common birth conditions. So, first is the cleft lip and palate. So, a cleft lip, sometimes called a hair lip, is an opening or a gap in the upper lip, often connected to the nose. So, ang kanisya is ang opening, ang lips sa bata is naa siya opening. So, I have here an illustration. So, the children with the cleft lips may suffer the difficulty with speech. The next is the joint fingers. So, ang kamot o ang tiil naka-join. So, the rule of the teacher here is able to encourage the students to do surgery or stretch out the skin around the areas. The next is incomplete or missing limbs. So, children have something born missing arms or legs. So, pag anak sa bata, doon na siya missing part sa iyang lawas. So, children without arms can be taught to use their feet for activities such as eating, drawing, and writing. The last is the other conditions. So, there are many serious and minor medical and physical conditions such as cystic fibrosis, fatal alcohol syndrome, brittle bone syndrome, and dwarfism, or chronic diseases or conditions such as diabetes, HIV/AIDS, cancer, asthma, juvenile arthritis, and muscular dystrophy. So, that would be all. Thank you.